Hi everyone, welcome to this week's episode of Show Me How It's Done. My name is Laura Nerbonis and I am your host for this week's episode. I'm a Canadian demonstrator, so if you need anything or have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out and I'm more than happy to get you set up with catalogs or anything else you might need. So just so you know, I do post all the measurements for these videos in the description on the video, so you're welcome to just follow along with me as we go if you'd like to have the pieces cut, or you can always come back and complete your projects later too. So the point of these weekly videos is just for me to share a fun little project with you. And this week in our house, we have been apple crazy. We've had a lot of apple stuff going on. We had, I guess, probably 4 neighbors who let us clear out their apple trees. So my husband and I and a lot of my siblings came and we made apple crisps. We pressed a lot of apples to make some cider and wine that are going. And we just had a really fun time this fall. So what I wanted to do was play with the Cheerful Basket stamp set. And there is a really cute set of dies that go with this as well. So here we go. We've got some coordinating dies for some of those big shapes like the baskets and of course the hearts and the scissors and stuff. But we also have some really unique dies that can be used to decorate your projects as well. So I'm using just a few of them on today's projects, namely the apples and some of the wicker pieces for the baskets. But I wanted to show you how versatile this set could be. So for my project today, we're going to make this adorable set here, and I featured the Cottage Gingham paper, the designer series paper. It's this giant package of paper that I unfortunately don't have on hand right now because I've used it all up, but there's 48 sheets of it with gingham in all different shapes and sizes and colors. So I really played with that a lot this month and decided I was going to play with it on the card as well. So to follow along, you're going to need a card base. I have used real red cardstock for my base, and I've cut it at 5.5 by 8.5. And this scored mark down the middle is at 4 1/4, so that you have a card that nicely folds in half, and we've got a great horizontal kind of plane to play with. Now I'm going to start with the middle of my card, the inside if you will, and I always like to put a piece of white in there just so you have something to write on. However, this time I thought it would be really cute if you stamped some apples in there first. So you'll want to cut your white piece, and that's 4 by 5 1/4. And then if you own this Cheerful Basket stamp set, you can stamp some apples along with me. So I've mounted my little apple set and I've got my real red ink. Just going to open that straight up towards me like a makeup compact, and you can kind of lock it into place if you'd like. Now remember, these juicy ink pads, you don't want to get all over your stamp, so just tap, and then you can start on the bottom of your project. Okay, I did miss a tiny bit, but that's the nice thing about photopolymer. So if you hold it up, I do need to lift this up, sorry guys. You're able to kind of line it back up and fix your little mistake. Not a big deal. If you really hate it, turn it over. That's the whole point of 2 sides to every paper. Okay, so we'll try that once more. And I like to put about 3 different stamps worth of apples, and it just looks like a pile kind of going into each other, and that's exactly what you want. So there's your apples, pretty and perfect. You will want to clean this apple set because we're going to need it up in the top here, and we're stamping with the black on that section instead. Okay, so I'm going to take this off now, and I am going to mount it, so turn that over, and my adhesive of choice is always some double-sided tape, but of course use your seal, use your glue, whatever you're most comfortable with for your project. So I'm just putting my tape in the 4 corners of my project, and then I'll attach this to the inside of the card. Like so. All right. Now your job is to decorate the front. And we've got some really cute little pieces of gingham to do that. So I'll just tell you right off the bat, you're going to need one large piece, and that's your center focal point. This one is going to measure 3 inches by 4 inches. And then you'll need 2 identical pieces here, and these are going to measure 1 1/4 by 4. Now it doesn't matter at all what order you put them on. You can put the 2 blacks on first. You can do black, yellow, black, because we're going to use these black buffers to kind of balance out a little bit of those uneven lines that you find in your gingham. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to start just from left to right and put my adhesive onto my strips. So once again, just a little bit of some sort of flat adhesive. We don't really want any dimensionals yet on this. And then also before I go ahead and mount my centerpiece, I am going to stamp on it just in case I make a horrible mistake. I can turn it over. It's not the same pattern on the back. It's going to be a different pattern, but at least it will still be something useful. So again, with my red, I'm going to brave that red. Hope it doesn't attract anything. I'm going to use a sentiment that says, "You fill my day with happiness." And that does come in this little set. Of course, you could use a birthday. You can use really anything you want, but I thought this was very appropriate for just an encouragement card or a thinking of you card for a friend. All right, now I'm going to turn this one over and put adhesive on the back of that. And rather than attach this one right away, I'm actually going to get my last black piece ready, because I kind of like to make sure that this is as centered as it can be on my cards. So if you've used a seal, then of course this backside is sticky right now, and you'll want to avoid putting it down on your card. So what you can do is you can just leave your card lying upright like this, and then using that top line that you've lined everything up, you can add your last piece of black here into this space. So it'll tuck under a tiny bit, but your priority is just to make sure you've got nice even lines, borders on the sides and the top and the bottom. Okay, when you're happy with how this looks and you've got a nice straight line across the top, you can now go ahead and attach this middle piece into that empty space. And the reason I show you how to do it this way is because sometimes you will decide not to use these little strips, and then you want to make sure that everything's lined up perfectly. You don't want to have uneven layers hiding in there, okay? But like I said, I'm using these little strips of black. I cut them so that they were 4 inches long and about 1/4 inch wide. And then you'll see this white on the back. I actually used our adhesive sheets because I wanted to turn them into a sticker, so I didn't have to sit here and put glue on the back of them. So I've put mine as a sticker. You'll need to put a little glue or tape on the back, and you can use them just as a buffer between your black and your yellow. Okay, and 2 of those should do it for you. There we go. So there is our base. Now we have a little bit of work to do on our little decal here. So I like to do that kind of off the card. So I'm going to actually move my card base out of my way and do a little bit of work. So I went ahead and I stamped my layer of apples already in Memento Black along the top of my circle. And this circle, if you're trying to find it, it is not in this set. It comes from the Stylish Shapes dies, and it is the largest size of the circle. Okay, so there's 4 circles or 5 circles in that set. Use the largest one. It fits your apple basket perfectly. Okay, so I've stamped this, and now I need to do some coloring. So I grabbed from my blends stash my cherry cobbler light and dark and my granny apple green. If you don't have these 2 colors, but you have something else red or something else green or any other apple color, go for it. It's totally up to you what you use. So what I'm going to start with is my dark cherry cobbler, and wherever Stampin' Up has put these little shadow lines, I'm actually going to go over and trace them because this is exactly how an apple would be shadowed, and we want that to be the darkest part on the apples we're coloring. So I've got my dark cherry cobbler, and I'm just adding that little bit of color. I can now take my light cherry cobbler and color the entire apple. You're going to color over the spots that you had those little lines on. And as the colors blend together, you'll get really, really cute shadow effects on your apples, okay? Don't worry about this bottom space giving a nice perfect line because we are going to be covering that with our basket. So it's a rather forgiving little color job. You don't need to worry about that bottom. And of course, if you're somebody who's like, I don't have time to do shadowing or I don't love shadowing, just grab a red marker and color these apples in. They will look adorable and nobody will question anything about it, okay? So just nice gentle coloring. I could use my thick side, but there's so many little leaves that I have to go around that it's actually easier for me just to do the dark or the thin tip here. You kind of want to keep the shape of each apple just in case there's some blending that goes on in there. There we go. And then for the leaves, the same idea. I brought my light and my dark granny apple. So I'm going to start with the dark, and just along these tiny little veins on your leaf, you can add the dark granny apple green. And then on the rest of the leaf, we're going to come over top and color the whole thing in the light. If you wanted even more definition, of course, then you could grab another red or even our color lifter and add a little bit of shadowing to the apples, but I'm quite satisfied with this. I think that's good enough for me. So what I've done is I cut myself out one of those little baskets that I mentioned. It's got some great wood grain embossed on it. I didn't have to add that. That came with the die. And I cut this out with the soft suede. So I'm just going to flip this over and pop it up with dimensionals. And the mini dimensionals will fit perfectly in these little parts of the basket. If you use the large ones, you might want to cut them down so they're not showing through on those gaps. Okay. Go. And then this can go right onto your project, so it's out of your way. Just make sure you've got kind of a nice spacing on the bottom, and then however you want to place that on top. Then you get to do something fun. So in your little die set, you're kind of probably wondering, like, where did you get those strips? So this Cheerful Basket, this guy here, this little piece will cut out all 3 of your strips in one shot, and I cut them out of crumb cake. I will caution you, before you start attaching, make sure you know where they go. So just sit, play Puzzle Master for a moment, and put them where they need to be. Okay, and then once you figured that out, I know this is crooked, then you can take some tape or glue and put that on the back. Okay, the tape is easiest because it's not going to seep through your little cracks. Otherwise, the glue, you'll probably want to put the dots directly on the basket here. So this guy goes right on the bottom. Of course, he's got his nice round edges for the bottom of a basket. And the longest piece will be your top. But I have done it one too many times where I've gotten ahead of myself and started attaching pieces and then realized something was upside down or wrong. So put them on, make sure they're correct, and then add your adhesive. Okay, there we go. And then to finish off, you're going to want a little adorable handle. So that is also a die that comes with this set. So I cut that handle out with the silver foil because I wanted it nice and shiny. Now this guy, if I was smart, I would have put the adhesive sheets on the back of it. When I was prepping this, I did not. So I'm stuck using glue. However, if you just put glue in this main thick, big part, here we go. Put your biggest amount of glue in here. And then maybe the tiniest bits on the end. You don't have to add any more than that, okay? This middle part will keep it attached. And this can go on your basket like so. But if you have the adhesive sheets, be smart, put them on before you cut that piece out. I did not do that because I was just using scraps that I had in my little collection, okay? And you'll notice my apples, they're very different. I wonder if I maybe used real red on one of them, but that's okay. They'll also kind of change as they dry. So it's completely up to you. This guy can go on your card now. We're going to turn it over and put dimensionals on the back. We want it nice and tall. And I'm even putting one in the center this time because I want it supported. There we go. And this now is going to go right in this middle space up here. There. Last but not least, if you would like to add these little apples, this is going to be the interesting part. So the dies, they cut out 2 little apples that I used real red for. You can also cut out 2 little stems using Granny Apple Green. These stems are not very big. They're very, very challenging to get on. So I would suggest just taking a little bit of your glue. If you just squeeze a little out the top, just poke this bottom of the stem into that glue so it gets, whoops, so it gets a little bit on the back. Turn your apple over and stick it on. This is maybe where you're going to use your tweezers because your fingers are not so good with this. And then because it's in place for you, put a dimensional on right now over top of the bottom of that stem. Just find the glue helps keep it in place a little bit more. So other one, you're gonna just stick that into the bottom of your glue so you've got a bit on there. Stick it on. And then put a dimensional in place once again. And then when you're happy, they've sat for a couple seconds, you can put them onto your project. And I just kind of put one straight, let's do this one straight and one at a tiny little bit of an angle. Like that. There we go. So there's my apple card. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you enjoy the little taste of fall that you can get when you're playing with this one. If you have the set, another really adorable thing to add would be this kitten. You could potentially even do that in place of the little apples, and maybe you'd get, you know, a whole different look for your card. But I wanted to play with the apples and to show how fun they were, but you can always play with the kitty too. So there you go. I so enjoy our Tuesday meetings. I hope that you guys do too. If you're new to my channel, I do videos every Tuesday at noon, so you can join me live, or of course they are also recorded. You can catch them anytime. If you would like to follow along with me, you can just like and subscribe to my channel. Then you'll get a notification whenever I go live or when I post something, and I can share more projects with you. But I look forward to seeing you guys next week. Take care. Bye.